Good afternoon. Today in this video, we will talk about language in the brain and more specifically how the brain works while you are communicating or while you're trying to produce speech. To start, we will start talking about the brain in the language and how the brain processes um, the language. So, first of all, uh, we have to know that the part of the brain that produces everything related with speech and communication, it's the left part of our brain, okay? And actually, when we talk about communicating, we have to know that the left hemisphere controls five movements. Those are required, obviously, to produce speech. As humans, we have something more complex that just communicate. Because if we think about animals, we know they are able to communicate. They know how to recognize each other's signs or sounds. But as humans, we have something more complex that is called um, motor control over speech. Okay. And a fine example about this is the alphabet. Okay, we can express an idea with symbols that are there's with symbols, excuse me, that are more complex than just sounds. So we will learn about that in this presentation. Why are what are the specific parts or areas of our brain responsible for this capacity? Okay, first of all, we have two regions on our brain that works together. The first one is the Broca's area, and this is associated with speech production. And then the Wernicke's area that is responsible for understanding of the language. Okay, we have to know that these two regions work together so we can produce and understand language or communication. Okay, without them working together, there will be not any kind of communication or the complex one that we were talking about. Okay, the Wernicke's model was found out by a neurologist, Norman Wernicke, and he was telling us how the this part of the brain works. Okay, it works because writing word informations first arise from the eye, so we can see how we are going to produce this information so we can be able to communicate. And then we have the lobes. Of course, we have more part of our brains that work together. The first one is the frontal lobe, that is generally responsible for planning, to think what is next. Okay, the frontal lobe is also known as the Broca's area, the houses of the Broca's area. So it's very, they work together. Okay, the parietal lobe, it's very important for language production because it involves move when you're speaking. The occipital lobe is responsible of see and also reading lips when they are speaking. So it involves something that you can see to understand. In the temporal lobe, there's a lot of listening. Okay, it's something like the Wernicke's area, a lot of understanding while you are trying to communicate or understand any kind of language. So, like I said, the Wernicke's area, there's a lot of vocabulary and language comprehension. Okay, this is very important to understand. Language comprehensions, it's the one who works with the Wernicke's area, or the Wernicke's area, it's responsible for the language comprehension. And then the cerebellum membrane stem, that is in charge of the movement, because when you are talking, obviously you need to keep breathing. Okay, that's if you are trying to say something, you have to work with your breathing. So this area of your brain helps you to do that. And then the Broca's area, like I said, it's responsible for grammar production. Okay. Then we have the Wernicke's area where we're talking about that. It's believed that to be unique to the function of language comprehension, you need to consider have to a good receiver or received language center of the brain. Okay, the Wernicke's area works to make sure the language makes sense. Like I said, if you are trying to understand something, you have to think or process that the thing you are listening to makes sense. Talking a little bit more about the Wernicke's area, we know that it's located within the left cerebral hemisphere and back of the temporal lobe. Okay, that's where the Wernicke's area is located. So when you are trying to produce speech, of course, if there is any kind of damage in this part of your brain, there's going to be um, a problem, okay, with that part of your brain, and that is called aphasia. Okay, if you have damage in the Wernicke's area, it will be very hard for you to be fluent on your speech. Okay, and then you will be unable to understand what is being spoken to you. And then the Broca's area, we know that it's located on the part of the brain that is responsible to articulation of language in any its forms. So it's located on the third frontal lobe and then in the left cerebral hemisphere, just like we said at the beginning of this presentation. The Broca's area, um, this part we already said that is on charge of the production of a message with internal coherence and articulating through the corresponding functions of the language. Like I said at the beginning of this presentation, the alphabet, letters, symbols, all of those things that are more complex. So, like I said, it is the same thing that happened with the Wernicke's area. If you have damage in this part of your brain, there's going to be some kind of aphasia, and then you will have problems with repeating words, lack of fluency when trying to speak or write, and the ability you will lose the ability to understand text in spoken language. So there are two different things that are working while you're trying to produce some speech or communication. Okay, communication is something big. Okay, an animal can communicate with another animal, and that is communication. But as humans, the left part of our brain works harder to produce speech. Okay, there is something more complex, there is something more big than just communicating, and this is the Wernicke's and the Broca's area. Two easy ways to understand this is the Broca's area is responsible to produce speech, such as complex things like grammar, alphabet, letters, symbols, all of those things. Production, Broca's area, production. And then the Wernicke's area, it's responsible to understand all of those things. Okay, so it is very easy to understand. Broca's area, production, Wernicke's area, understanding, and that will be um, how our brains works and the communication, and more specifically production and understanding of speech.